Okay, so now that we've got all the functionality of our game in place, we can play some single player games, we can play multiplayer games. We have our score target to say when one of the player wins. We have our main menu, so we can choose individual options, and we can actually quit the game itself. The final thing that we need to do is actually export this so that it's a game that anyone can play. And how we do that is we go to File up here, then we go to Build Settings. The next thing we want to do is go to Player Settings down here in the bottom left, and then we can choose, so we have a company name up here, so I'm just going to leave that at James. We've got a product name, which is the name of whatever our game will be, and that'll be the name that's applied to the icon on the desktop of the game. We've got a space here for a default icon and a default cursor, so you can add in your own custom image for what the little icon on the desktop of the for the game will be. But by default it'll just be the Unity symbol, and that's most of what we want to stick with. The only other thing we want to do is we want to, where is this? Supported aspect ratios. There we go. We want to make sure that our player is locked to be at 16:9 because we built our game around being 16:9. We want to make sure that our players will only stick to that so they don't see extra bits of screen and extra bits of random space that they don't need to see, and also to make sure that nothing gets cut off by a different viewpoint. So we want to disable all of these other ones and make sure that only 16:9 is selected, and that way our players will be, we're sure that our players will have the same view that we want them to have. And that's pretty much it. That's all we really need to mess around with. You can mess around with the other values as well. For example, there's a splash image when you load into the game. We've got other various different settings you don't need to worry too much about. But for now, all we're going to do is then hit the build button here. And what we'll do is create a new folder that we'll call builds. And then here we're going to say tennis version 1. We're going to save that, and then it'll take a few minutes to compile the game, depending obviously on the size of the game itself and the complexity of everything. This is a very simple game, so it won't take very long to build it, but the more detailed and the more of everything that's in your game, basically, the longer this will take to do. But for now, we should just be able to wait for this to build, and then we'll see our final files in action. So once the game is finished in building, it'll automatically open up the files that are outputs. So we've got this folder where we've just built our game into. So we've got our default files here, or sorry, not our default files, our completed files here. It's important to remember, if you're sharing this game with anybody else out there, it's important to remember that you need to give them both of these things. If you just give them the exe file, the game won't work. It needs the folder that contains data for the game also. So if you're sharing this with anyone else, you need to make sure to get both of these files, and then you can just hit the tennis exe file here. So we'll get some options for different resolutions. I'm going to stick at 720 there, and then we can hit the play button, and then once it finishes loading, there we go, we've got our main menu here in operation. We can hit the single player button, and now we can play our game and see how badly I can lose against the computer. Oh my god, I actually managed to get a point. But there you go, that's our complete tennis game in operation. So the best thing to do is just try and build this game for yourself and adjust the scores and see how it feels to play with other people. And then we'll move on to making our next game in the next set of videos.